where I store them. They are no longer available on the website, but I thought this would be a really nice opportunity just to go through and to have a look at the tiny treasures, because I have about 100 of them, which is a lot of tiny treasures to have. So let's have a look. This is a box that I got in just a thrift store, and I fell in love as soon as I saw it. I think it's hand carved. I don't know where it's from. I have no idea, but it's just this beautiful little wooden box. I don't think it's particularly old. If you know, please tell me. I would love to know where it's from or anything like that. But this is where I store my tiny treasures. So I thought I would bring you along for the ride, and we'll just go through all these little things that I have. That is a beautiful little piece. I remember this feels like nighttime to me, and I really love it. This is where I started doing things a little bit differently, having some foliage in the foreground. You can see it's just this beautiful little reflection of the moon and on the water there. It's really nice too. I love the atmosphere in this one, the moon, and especially this section here. That's one of my favorite pieces. Just that blend between like solid ground and the sky, that's really lovely, and the colors too. It's a little bit harder to see in this light, but it's more of a green, but the camera's rendering it quite blue. Oh, this is lovely too. It's the tree and the reflection of the gold in that tree. That's really nice. And I like that there's kind of no distinction in the foreground. That's really lovely. Really like the colors in this one. I like how it just feels like the sun has just dipped below the horizon and it's throwing that red light. That's really nice. Experimenting a little bit with color, contrasting colors. So obviously orange and purple, they're opposite on the color wheel, so they've got a little bit more contrast, and with the gold highlights. More of a simple landscape, this one, which is quite nice. This one's lovely. I like the sky in this one and the reflection. And the trees. I like how the trees aren't exactly how I would envision a tree to look. It's a little bit patchy and a little bit all over the place, but I like that. I like how that turned out. I think that rendered itself quite well. So I'm wanting to have trees as part of my practice. I want to explore more. So there's another miniature artist, Dinah Brobsky. I'm not 100% sure of her name, but the way she paints trees is just beautiful. But I'm not quite at that stage because it's just practice too, isn't it? I love the composition of this one. The composition, I just love that there's that big sky and it feels like that you're in the forest. And it's hard to see, but there is a lot of sparkle and shine on this one as well. It's a lovely little blue scene with the colours and the clouds. That's really nice as well. This, I've been trying to render some of like those big majestic peaks with the snow-covered mountains, and so the light and the rocks and the reflections of that, I wanted to capture that a little bit more. I'm still practicing, I'm still working on it, but I'm happy with how it turned out. So there was an artist that I bought some of his work, whoops, and it was black and white pen and ink, and I've always loved pen and ink and I've done it quite a lot, so there's a couple of examples here. I wanted to render that in miniature format, and I really like how they've turned out. I think they look really, really nice. This is a lovely reflection of a abstract and playing with brush strokes and seeing how they go. Another simple scene, just contrasting colours again. Having the greens are really lovely. So all of these will be available in April. They're really, really nice. Such cute little scenes. I really like this one. I like the people in the boat. Even though the colours don't match, they remind me of the Baltic coast or something like that. Abstracts. Oh, I just love these. They're just such, they just have such a mood and a feeling. It's really nice. This one's one of my favourites ever. Just so pretty. Having that reflection in the foreground, that's really nice too. I wanted to try like a massive tree as part of the composition, and I like how it turned out. I like fireflies and pretty lights, and I think that rendered really well in this particular one. This one, I like how the trees turned out. The waves, not so much, it feels a little bit choppy, but having that tree line and just the suggestion of other trees in the background, that's really lovely. This one I really enjoyed doing. This has been a later edition where the foreground comes from the top instead of being part of the bottom. And so having that foliage, it just feels like you're under a tree looking out over the view, and I really enjoy that. So that has come up a few times in some of the later work. All of these have been done over about 5 months. So that's quite a lot in 5 months, really, because there's definitely over 100. I don't have 100 with me because quite a lot have sold. They're no longer available on my website because of the show in April. But it has been really nice to see the progression and the change of scenery and just different skills and things like that that I've been managing to learn from, which has been really, really nice. This one, I particularly like this one. For some reason, it just captures this mood and this idea that I really, really love. I was playing a lot with the textures of a brush, and that was cool. Same with this. It's just something about that transition between the earth and the sky. And when it has that misty feeling, I just feel like it carries a lot of weight. Again, another experiment for snow-capped peaks and how they render in the light, whether there's light hitting it from a certain angle. And another one, see, they can be, where's the other one of this that I just showed you? They can be so different, and that's what I like about these particular ones. Here it is. See, I like the difference between the two. Like one is a lot more saturated and the other one, it's got different feeling to it, but it's the same method. And I really like that. I enjoy having that difference. I know it doesn't look like much. It doesn't look like a huge difference, but there's definitely a shift in the feeling there for me. Experimenting with simple shapes. And trying to go back to my abstract roots. I love abstract and I like how it renders, and combining that with the landscapes, I think that's a really effective way for me to incorporate a lot of my styles. Landscapes have very quickly become something that I'm more known for, but abstracts have been like my heart language for quite a long time. I love these trees. I'm not sure if you can see it, but can you see how the trees have been rendered? It's the pigment that's done a lot of work for me in this one, and I really like the effect. So we've got that kind of misty blended spread of the blue pigment, but there's still black pigment that's kind of sunk into the divots of the paper. And that's really exciting when you see something like that happen, because you're getting to know your tools and how they react with each other, especially when it comes to paint and pigments and things like that. I talk a lot about that in my online watercolor course, getting to know your materials. This, again, is a pen and ink. I've done a couple of these. I've always done pen and ink, so these are just nice experiments to do. This, I think it's still one of my favorite ones I've ever done. It doesn't feel like it. It looks like velvet to me. I don't know what it is. It's maybe it's the texture of the paper. I think, did I use the right side of the paper on this one? But This started out as a landscape that didn't work, and so I just went over it with the brush, and just the colors and the textures that came out of it, I just really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, another one of the pen and ink. I really like these. These are very cute. Some more of the landscapes with the sparkle. I like that if you're looking at it straight on, you can't tell that there is any kind of metallics in it, but when you angle it, then those metallics really start to shine. This is quite lovely, especially with the little man in the boat. I don't usually paint the boats or scenes or people in my landscapes. I don't know, I've just never done it because I find that quite often people spoil landscapes, spoil nature. But I really like how this one turned out because it ended up being something that reminded me of times past. This one's a little bit dark for my liking. It's a little bit too gothic, but at the same time, I really like the feel of it. I'm a huge classic novel fan, so I know this gives me Wuthering Heights vibes, which, you know, I don't particularly like that novel at all, but I do appreciate the colours and maybe the feel of it. More earthy colours, this one. This was, there's probably a few in these that come up. This was in response to the colours on my cutting board. I have a solid wood cutting board that's quite dark in its colour, and I was looking at the colours as I was chopping the onions one day, and I was like, oh, these are really cool colours. I might try and paint some of those colours that are reflected in that. So that was the result of that. Probably a little bit brighter than I normally do. I tend to think that these super bright saturated colours, I mean, they look pretty and they're lovely. They're not my favourite. Some people respond really well to them, but they're just not what you normally see in a landscape. Maybe that's it as well. Some more of the pen and ink drawings. I like the abstract. I like the scratchiness. It's probably a little bit hard to see, but I like the scratchiness of the pen. It's like you can see where the pen has gone. And I'm starting to really, really enjoy that kind of imperfect nature of doing something handmade. I think we've lost a lot of handmade quality because you can have perfection in handmade. Like there are some things that you look at and you just think, wow, that is incredibly stunning, and how did they make that so beautiful? But when you absolutely know it's handmade, then you can appreciate the craftsmanship. But I think what we've lost a lot of it is seeing the process of something being created beautifully. And the process is a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of these marks and a lot of these scratchiness that in the next piece we learn how to take out. But I think it's important to know that it came from a place of experimenting and mark making. So some of the things I think is like, you know, those sections up the top here, or these little bits that, you know, aren't quite filled in. I mean, if it was a computer, it would probably do it all perfectly, but I think that's the beauty of original art as well, is that nothing is ever perfect. I love this. This is a scene. So I have a book that it's a children's book, and it's such a beautiful book. I have a link to it on my YouTube. It's really, really nice. But this composition just reminds me of that book quite a lot. It's funny, I put this one on my Facebook saying I didn't like it. And I got so many comments saying it's not your normal style, but I don't know why you don't like it. And for me, it's not harmonious. Usually when there is water in a scene, it reflects the color of the sky, and this is completely different. So that's why I don't like it. The tiny details are so stunning. Thank you. I love the tiny details. I think that's like part of the nice thing about going tiny. I think it makes you concentrate on things so much more. Like something like this, it's like experimenting with the brush and getting those brush marks to see like how far can I push it. And what happened with these is they rendered in what I can feel is like the bush after a bushfire in Australia, and I guess other parts of the world too. We can get some pretty fierce bushfires here, and cyclones, which I think are tornadoes in the States. But the way they strip the landscape is quite an interesting sight, and I feel like these brush marks kind of reflect that quite a lot. So it does remind me a lot of the places that I've been and go to. And that's why this kind of lake scene is very familiar in a lot of my work. Even this scene, I just feel like there is just so much in the air that feels like not long after a bushfire. Yeah. And it's devastating, and there's so many things that like come from a natural disaster, but I do find in a lot of ways, usually the thing it destroys the most are the things that we've made. Like there are some trees and things like that that benefit from being scorched like that for some reason, and that happens in where we grew up as well. Obviously, you know, it does scar the landscape to quite an extent, but at the same time it does like give it a lot of regrowth potential as well. This is one of my favorite color combinations. I do use it quite a lot, but I don't know, just this combination of that heavy darkness but also the brightness of the orange. I really like that. It's really nice. So yeah, these aren't available anymore. They were retired from the website because that has a show in April and I'm just getting prepared for that. This one I really like. It turned out as an, it never lasts long. It's like the start of something new. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100% agree. I love the details of how the pigment has corn up in that section there. It's really nice. Again, you can probably see that I've really kind of lent into this scratchy, like that bare tree aesthetic for a bit. This one I mustn't have had any tape with me on the day because it's not bordered correctly, but I like the organic shape of it. I still think it has something in there. And this is the only one out of the whole lot that I did without taping up the edges. Maybe I should do a little bit more of it. It is harder for me. It is harder for me to control the paint and stuff like that when the edges are live like that. So there's quite a few in this color palette. And I think at the time I was just very much leaning into those purples and oranges, having that combination, which is good. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of lovely comments, especially on the Facebook page at the moment, about liking my style and how I render things. And that's been really encouraging, not because I'm seeking external validation in any way, but it's just nice to know that the color choices I know are sometimes strange, because, you know, often the sea and the actual land are the same color. Like this one in particular, the sky is green. But I don't know, I tend to see colors, I tend to see things quite differently, I think, than normal, especially when it comes to color. So I definitely find that sometimes the sky to me is a different color than what it is supposed to be, I guess. This one as well, it's hard to see, but there are elements of like a green in this gradient up here. So it's kind of been reassuring that a lot of people like that kind of style as well. This one I love. I don't know how I did it. It's the only one out of this whole set that is this particular way, but for me it feels like the middle of winter but with none of the winter colors. Maybe it's the scratchiness of the trees, but I love how there's this feeling of, you know, that they're there but they've disappeared. I really like that. Oh, this is another one. This one feels like, I'm not sure if you've ever been into the forest, but when you're deep into the forest and you're surrounded by the forest and then you get to this little clearing and you've got this, it's not a bird's eye view, but you know you're in the middle of nowhere. This is the feeling that this painting is giving me. So in Tasmania, there is a lot of famous hiking trails, and one of them is called the Overland Track. It's a 6-day, 5-night walk. I think you can do it a bit faster if you wanted to. And some of the views on that track are just exactly this view here. It's where you get these little snippets where if anything goes wrong, if you break an ankle or sprain an ankle or something like that, you need to be helicoptered out because it's just too far from anywhere. And having those little views, it's really actually quite nice just to know that you're kind of in the middle of nowhere and you're just enjoying nature. I actually, when I did the hike, I took along earphones because I thought, oh, maybe I'll need to be entertained or something. Absolutely not. The whole time I didn't have any podcasts, I didn't have any music. It was just listening to like the rhythm of the earth. It was really lovely. Such a nice reset. This is one of my favorites. It's so simple, but it carries a lot of weight. This one as well. I don't normally paint birds. It's same with the people in the boats. I don't normally paint people or things in my landscapes. But the birds, they kind of worked on this one. I like how subtle they are. So this came from the cutting board series, looking at colours that inspired by my cutting board, which was kind of cool. I've just recently sold, well, before they were retired, there was a shout out on my website, 4 of these that have very similar color palette. They're going to the same collector, and I really liked his choices. I was like, I would never have put those 4 together. They're sent off now, so I can't show you, but they all had this very similar color palette, and it was only once they were all together as a set of 4, I was like, oh, they actually work really well together. And that's the nice surprising thing about having so many as well. Sometimes when they're all displayed like in one hit, you can see similarities between them that create one scene, but I painted them at different times and not together. So it's interesting. Like this color, like I'm looking through and this color selection is coming up again and again. If you've been watching for a little bit, you probably agree with me. Like, haven't I seen that before? But these are all painted at different times. So it just shows you as well what's kind of familiar on my palette as I'm mixing and going through the colors, and it's very cool. It's cool to look back on your work and see. This one I already painted a similar one to this. I was experimenting with the contrast of purple and orange. Purple, orange and green. So trying to get that trifecta with secondary colors. This is another one I really like. I feel like there's so much mood and movement in this one. I often put up on my Facebook page like a selection of 3 or 4 different ones, and I'm always so interested in what people choose. I say, which one is your favorite? And without fail, it seems like most people choose the ones that I don't. And this was one of them. This has been a long time favorite of mine for a lot of reasons. Like this cutout here, I really love this section. I love that there is sections that are kind of like almost mispainted. I like how it doesn't quite feel finished here. I love the birds. There's just so much. I love the colors. But every time, no one chooses this one, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, again with the abstracts in the sky. Nearly at the end. Oh, this is playing with another pigment. You can see how the pigment, it's a lot heavier than the others, and so the color, once it dries, it kind of sits in the divots of the paper and soaks in and kind of separates from each other. It's a really cool effect. This one's lovely too. Yeah, this one I think is quite interesting. It can go both ways. So it's the horizon line and this is the water, or it's upside down. So again, experimenting with the brush, not quite knowing where the composition goes. Oh, I love this one. And I think it's that abstract section at the top. And I think it's because it's so finely detailed. The camera's not picking it up, but those lines, some of those lines are very, very fine, but they have that really painterly feel, which I like. We're nearly at the end, nearly at the end. Not many tiny treasures left. And the green solitary tree. And this one's quite nice. The details, there's a lot of details in this one. Very cute. Again, like I mentioned, some of them, they are quite similar in their composition, or not composition, just their colors and their feel. I feel like these two go well together because this feels like the view from away from the forest, and this feels like you're in the forest, and it has that same kind of connection. I like that. Again with the sky and the last one. So those are all the tiny treasures. There are so many, such a like a lovely little variety of paints. So I'm getting all the little mini frames made up for these. This is for the show in April in Melbourne, Australia. I'm a bit excited. I've never been there before, so this will be a first time. And sometimes when I go to these fairs and these shows, I walk around and I see a lot of the other vendors as well. I'm always very confident in my work and how it is rendered, but I always see how different. My work is not trendy. It's not illustrative. It's not. It doesn't have a particular message besides, you know, painting how I feel when I'm in the outdoors. And so, like, sometimes it's hard not to compare. You're like, oh, have I made the right decision by coming here? But every time I'm always pleasantly surprised because many people stop and they're like, oh, wow, I never expected to see that here. So I really like that. So I'm excited to exhibit some of these. And because they're so tiny too, you never know how people are going to react to something that's so little. But I love it. I love it. I love it. I just keep doing it. And there's so many. If you're following along, you probably follow along on the channel as well. But there's just so much joy that comes from having these little paintings and playing with ideas and things like that. I'm kind of wanting to go down like an abstract route now and just see how I go. And I want to paint some still lifes as well in such a tiny format. I haven't quite got there yet because I'm not quite sure how I'll go about it, but I'm planning to do that at some point. So that was the little tour of the miniatures. Once they're all framed up and everything like that, I might do another similar video where you can see. And that is everything, all of my tiny treasures. And I think it's so appropriate that it's in this little treasure box. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if you know where this is from, yeah, it's definitely not Australian. We're not we're not that clever. Like, to me it feels hand carved. That feels like it's brass. I don't know what the wood is, but this is what it is. So if you know what it is or where it might be from, please tell me. I'd love to know. But that is my little treasure box. Thank you for following along, and we'll catch you in the next live. I might go through. Isn't it incredible? I know. Do you know where it's from? I don't know where it's from. I'd love to know. Because it just feels so handmade. Like, look at this. Well, I was talking about it not being perfect. Oh, thank you for following along. See how along here, I'm not sure if you can see, it just feels very much like it's just being carved in. And you can see that it's kind of like chunky in a way. Yeah, I'd love to know where it's from. It's kind of chunky, but I think that's the grain of the wood. See, because the grain goes this way. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So that's why all of the tiny treasures are in the treasure box. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time, and we will have a tour of the sketchbooks because I've nearly finished another of the mini sketchbooks, and I do my sketchbooks a little bit differently. I don't hold any pages back, so if it's a rubbish page, you get to see that as well. It's not one of those highly curated things. So thank you for joining me, and yeah, we'll see you next time for some more tiny treasures and some more landscapes and things like that. Bye, everyone.